All right, well, welcome. We are glad that you are here for our Justice, Mercy, and Humility Sounding Seminar Series. My name is Natasha Brown, and I am the Program Manager here at Coracle. Coracle is a ministry devoted to spiritual formation for kingdom action. We are committed to helping each of us go deeper into God and the brokenness of this world with God's redeeming power. Now, the last time we were together, Terry, Tim, and Tracy Matthews from Attune to Grow led us in an attunement exercise that helped us to hear from God to see where He wants us individually to live out justice, mercy, and humility in our own lives and communities. Tonight, we will continue our series with a focus on kingdom action with Restoration Immigration Legal Aid, also known as RILA. RILA staff will discuss how they began, how the work has transformed their staff, clients, volunteers, and practical ways that Christians can love and serve their immigrant neighbors. We are so excited for our discussion this evening. At any time, please share your comments or questions in the chat. Without further ado, I'll pass this over to Natalie to get us started. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you. My name is Natalie Foote, and I am a co-founder and executive director of Restoration Immigration Legal Aid. And I am joined tonight by staff members, and I will let them go ahead and introduce themselves before I share what we'll be doing this evening and also our mission and vision. So go ahead, Michelle and Julia, you can introduce yourselves.
I'm Michelle Swearingen, also one of the founders and a legal advocate at RILA.
Julia Ovando. I am a staff attorney at RILA.
Thank you.
Not a founder.
So this evening, I'm going to be interviewing Michelle and Julia about their work at RILA, about how they started work at RILA, why they work at RILA, and also how their faith and perspective has been changed and shaped through their work at RILA. So before we get started, I'll share a little bit about what our mission and vision is. Our mission is to provide immigration legal aid to the immigrants in our neighborhoods who are the most vulnerable and who have the fewest resources. We currently have over 900 cases. About half of them are asylum cases, and about a quarter of them are cases for immigrant children who are eligible for what's called special immigrant juvenile status, and Julia will share a little bit more about that later. We're pretty young. We were founded in 2016. We're committed to working with volunteers in our community to do our work. So in our model is to do 2 monthly clinics where we meet with clients, and that is where we engage with volunteers in the community who volunteer with us to serve a meal that we share together, to serve as interpreters, administration, and note takers. So in addition to the work that we do, we are committed to doing our work in the context of the local church and in the context of community volunteers from all over. So that is a little bit about our work. To get started, my first question is to Michelle. Can you tell us how RILA began and how you became involved?
Sure. So as Natalie said, we started around 2016, but even before that, there was just a small group from our church, Restoration Anglican, that had been praying for their immigrant neighbors. They were concerned and justice-minded. How can we serve? And then I think about a year later, there was a call from the church to start immigration legal aid clinics, which is sort of incredible now that I think about it. And Natalie was getting involved, and she approached me, and I had been working at the U.S. Institute of Peace and was also raising kids and loved the idea of being able to take this work that I was doing that was sort of global and do it locally with our church. So that's kind of, we began as a little baby staff with like the kids in the nursery at the church, and us just working down the hall to get started and learn as much as we could about all of the immigration legal needs that our immigrant neighbors had. until, yeah, it's grown now, which I just told someone 800 cases today. So it's grown. I need to keep up with where we are, 900 apparently.
Yes, yeah. And Julia, when did you first hear about Ryla and how did you become involved in our work?
So I don't know when I first heard, but it was after we started in 2016, probably around 2018 or so. Mel will tell us exactly when I heard about it, but I heard about it through our church. I think coming alongside and being asked to partner with Ryla, and then a friend of mine from church took a job at Ryla. And she came in as like an office administrator. And so when she told me she was taking a job at Ryla, I said, "Oh, can I come work with you?" And she said, "No, Julie, we're just a baby. It's just a baby nonprofit. We don't have a job for you, but you can volunteer." And I didn't have the bandwidth at that time to volunteer. So then 3 years later, I think that same friend, Mel, reached out and said, "I think we're ready to hire you." So that's how I came to be at Ryla. And I'm just part-time at Ryla. So I've tried to figure out how to juggle my life to allow me to be part of a nonprofit, but also support my family. And so that's an ongoing work of grace.
Mm-hmm. Well, sort of along with that, Julia, because it is, I mean, it's obviously something you want to be doing, working with Ryla. It's not something you have to be doing professionally. You could just continue with your private practice. So why is it that you do work at Ryla and that you chose to join us?
So in my private practice, my favorite practice is I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish. And my favorite practice is representing children, generally immigrant children whose primary home language is Spanish. And going to law school, so I was a Spanish teacher before I became a lawyer, and my goal in going to law school was to help kids and work on immigration. But then when I got out of law school, or while I was in law school, I just didn't find any immigration outlets that I felt like were whole or treating the whole person. And I didn't want to be taking money from the most vulnerable. And so I always felt, so I found other ways. I was a court-appointed attorney so that the state would pay me, and I didn't feel like I had to charge the most vulnerable cases that I had. And so all of that to say, Ryla is like God putting Ryla in my path as a way to serve the most vulnerable, spread the message of what we're doing and how we're helping bring justice to the most vulnerable in a way that allows God's work through us, and to meet their needs as a whole person, and not just being part of that holistic ministry is amazing, where I can use the skills that I have, but help them in a very real way that opens up so many other doors. Helping a person become legal opens up the future here in this country, and brings them out of the shadows and makes so many more things available to them that I wasn't able to do as a court-appointed attorney, where I was just dealing with the trauma and dealing with broken families and reunification. But the pathway to legalization is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that we do all of our services are, well, we charge no fees for services. And you know, legal services are prohibitively expensive for every client that we work with. A typical asylum case from a private attorney costs around $10,000. I'm not sure what is the number for the cases that you do, Julia?
9,000 for all three phases.
Okay, right. So, so the $9,000 is referring to a case for a child that is eligible for special immigrant juvenile services. So these two kinds of cases that we do, people are not, they just, it's impossible for them to pay a private attorney. And one reason this is justice work is because the immigrants that we're working with are lawfully eligible for these statuses. They are lawfully eligible for asylum. They are lawfully eligible for special immigrant juvenile status. However, it is impossible to obtain that status without the help of an attorney. So apart from our work, they would not be able to receive security and protection and safety. And like Julia is mentioning, just an incredible number of opportunities and open doors that come when you do have lawful status in this country. Michelle, do you have anything to add as to why you work at RILA? What keeps you here?
Yeah, I think I was really excited, and what keeps me I know, energized by it is that I get to, I think at any job we can bring Jesus there with us. I don't think we're limited to jobs that are at a Christian nonprofit, but there is just a freedom to be motivated and be expressive about, this is why I'm doing this. That is really edifying to me. It's also something that I can bring my family along into. Like, this is something that I feel like this work is very family friendly. My kids know what I'm doing. They come to clinics sometimes, they interact with clients, and it feels like a family ministry. So that's a piece of this work that I really love. It feels missional in a way. I wanted to go abroad. That was sort of my, like, in college, that was what I thought I would be doing. And the Lord had this other plan where I'm interacting with all these amazing people from around the world, but I do it from here, from Arlington, Alexandria, Virginia.
I love that. I also always thought that I would go abroad, and I did go abroad in college. And it's really remarkable to be able to work with people from all over the world right here in our own neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Okay, Julia, why don't you tell us a little bit about specifically the kind of work that you do at RILA?
So at RILA, in the last few months, I've started focusing on special immigrant juvenile status cases. So those children are eligible if they have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents, causing them to not be able to be reunified with that parent. So in those cases, that special immigrant juvenile status was created originally for kids who were in foster care and couldn't be reunited with their parents back in home country. And so they were left in this limbo here in foster care where they couldn't be adopted out of foster care and get legal status. And so that's what it came from. But now it applies to kids where it's not just both. This doesn't have to be both parents have abused, neglected, or abandoned them. They just, for whatever reason, have to have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents. So the kids that we represent are often being raised by a single parent, mom or dad, or raised by a relative or even a family friend. Something has happened in their relationship with the parent who's absent or with both parents. Sometimes it was abuse in home country. Sometimes it was abuse here, but those kids have come here as children. So they have to be children. When we get the case, they have to be under 18 in Virginia. And the door we go through is through the local court. So we go to the local court and request custody and findings of this abuse, neglect, and abandonment by one or both parents. And then with that order, the custody order that makes those findings, we can then open file with immigration for the immigration visa. It's a long process. So right now I explain it to clients that it's 3 steps. So that's the local court process, and we go to the custody court, the juvenile and domestic relations court here in Virginia, which is county based. So whatever county the child lives in, we go to that court. And then we take that order and file it with the immigration office. And that's under the application is an I-360 form, the application for the special immigrant juvenile visa status. Once that is approved, then they become eligible for a work permit. So then we can file for their work permit. But then realistically, hold on one second. I have a little friend who came to join me. You can be in here, but I need you to be quiet, okay? I'm in her room because there's a whole bunch of work happening behind our house. And so there's no other part of the house that's quiet right now. Sorry. I forgot where I was. So after we do the I-360, that's the second step. We can file with the first step for immigration process, but there's such a backlog right now that it takes with those clients, they have this semi-protected status where they can't leave the country and they're waiting for 5 to 6 years for a visa to become eligible for them, and then they can apply for the visa once they come up the list. It's like a waiting list is the way I explain it. And so once they become eligible because of the date that they applied for their I-360, then they can apply to adjust status, and that gives them the active visa and begin their path to permanency. And 5 years later, then they can become a US citizen. So that's all the steps I explain to the clients. And RILA, what's great about RILA is that we're there the whole way. And it's been really wonderful this year to see our first big batch of kids become eligible. They've all been waiting for 4 to 6 years, and finally they're able to take the next step and get their visa that's been pending for these last many years of waiting. So as long as they got the I-360, as long as they got the order filed in time, in Virginia it used to be before they turned 18, and then the I-360 filed before they turned 21, then we could have kids who are 25 or 20, even older, I guess, who are finally getting a visa.
Yeah, the big batch of kids that Julia's referring to, they were all quite young when we started the process, and we held a clinic where they all came to work on their green card applications because we had about 30 that were all eligible at the same time. And it was really, really amazing to see them. They're all now older teenagers and even young adults. But when we met them, they were young, and that's something that's so rewarding. And I think unique about RILA's work is that we're committed to walking with people over several years of their entire immigration process until they do have their green cards. Julia, one more question for you. What do you think other people, especially Christians, should know, or what would you like them to better understand about the challenges that immigrant children and their families are facing in this area?
So I think most of the immigrant children, at least our population of immigrant children that we're helping, come from very traumatic circumstances. So especially the ones that qualify for special immigrant juvenile status have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents, but they're also generally fleeing something in their home country. And so they're dealing, when they first come, they're dealing with not speaking the language and culture shock, but also whatever traumas they're carrying with them. And so I think a lot of times they're treated as the outsider, but they're also isolated by their own traumas. And so anything that people can do to show that they're listening, that they're there, that they are accepted, and that's how we show Jesus's love to them, right? That we come along beside them with whatever they're dealing with and walk that path.
Thanks, Julia. Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about your role and work at RILA?
Sure. So I am one of the legal advocates. We have several folks that are accredited through the Department of Justice. So we're not actually attorneys, but we are given permission by the Department of Justice. They decide that we're qualified, we have to apply for this, and then we're allowed to practice immigration law. So like Natalie and I are both accredited through this program. And so we can actually do everything within immigration that an attorney can do. We can't do what Julia does because that's outside of immigration court. But so I'm one of those folks. I'm fully accredited. So I do work on people's asylum applications, and then I can go even all the way through to their hearing at immigration court. I am also kind of heading the Afghan program. So we didn't have any Afghan clients, and then all of a sudden we had a whole bunch of Afghan clients. So I've overseen that. We have had, it was initially a lot of people that were evacuated and they were in this affirmative process. But more recently, everybody that couldn't get out and was in danger has been coming, slowly making their way up from South America to cross the southern border. So they're entering with people from Central America, from all over the world. This is like the pathway they have to seek safety since they weren't able to get out when the big planes were evacuating. And then I also get to do really fun things with our church partners, just to communicate with them, see how they want to connect with our organization, how we can provide cool, like, opportunities for them to get plugged in with RILA. And that's a thing I really enjoy too about my job. But at a small nonprofit, right, we're all doing everything all the time. That's also the truth of it.
As Michelle mentioned, we are fully accredited reps, so non-attorneys practicing immigration law. And Michelle and I both, over the past 6 to 9 months, have been representing our clients in immigration court in their asylum hearings, which is something that has stretched both Michelle and I. Super thankful for our supervising attorney who is training us and supporting us in this work. Michelle, what has it been like for you to represent clients at their asylum hearings in court? You know, it's something that has stretched you in many ways, and me too. But what has that been like for you?
Yeah, I never would have imagined I would have felt comfortable doing that. I don't really like talking in front of people. I find judges very intimidating, right? As we probably all do. They're scary. So it literally just came down to, though, you know, as a legal advocate, we work with our clients to prepare their case, which is months of work, right? If not years. Sometimes we have done their application for asylum years before they actually get their chance to go to the court and tell the judge why they can't be safe in their home country. So I got to this point with one of my clients where I was like, but I know their story. They trust me. I know that I can help them tell their story to the judge. And I didn't feel super it was still scary, but yeah, like Natalie said, we have an amazing supervising attorney. Natalie also was really supportive. And so it was a huge step of honestly, Lord have mercy. It was a huge step of faith, doing something that I felt like was outside of my comfort zone, but there's nothing like standing beside somebody and advocating for them and helping them, being that person in the room that they know is safe when everyone else is hostile. When they're in that courtroom, no one else is on their side. You're the only one, and you already have practiced and you know everything, and they know exactly what it's a really special thing to stand beside someone and help them tell their story, help them recount the worst days of their life, with the hope that after they're done, they can be granted asylum and never have to relive them again. And so it is immensely gratifying to be able to be a part of this, and also very humbling. Lord, this is not me. You just have grace on all of this. But also, yeah, our clients are so trusting of us. They put their trust in us, and that's a really heavy, we have a lot, you carry that with a lot of weight. So I don't know that I was very articulate there, but basically it's really challenging and really rewarding, and I love that. Yeah, we'll never run out of ways to grow in this job. There's always new ways to grow and to care for people.
Yeah. Also, Michelle, you mentioned that we had no Afghan clients, and then we had a lot of Afghan clients. So right now we have around 80 Afghan clients. It's a bigger number than you were expecting. So, you know, the vast majority of our clients do come from the Northern Triangle, which is Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, though we do have people from all over the world. But in terms of you know, what we were accustomed to culturally, working with clients, all of us had just become accustomed to working with folks from the Northern Triangle. So can you share a little bit about how your faith and your worldview and how you've been changed as a person as a result of working with Afghans who are very different than the clients we were working with before?
In some ways, the Afghan clients are easier to relate to because the ones that are here because they were working with the US government. They are speaking English, most likely. They've been to college. They are unsafe because they are like me, basically. If you're Western in Afghanistan, you're not safe. And so it has been interesting and different. I mean, our clients from Central America are amazing, and they stretch me and encourage me in different ways. But it's unnerving sometimes to see, wow, we are exactly the same, except for you had to run through the jungle with your kids, and your college degree didn't matter, and all of your experience nothing mattered. You didn't do anything to deserve this. and it could be me. I could be in this exact situation. So that, I think, from the starting point, it was just different to interact with people that that were that had a very similar expectation from life to me, that were, and also to be able to, because I am not a Spanish speaker, to be able to communicate in English with my clients was also another level of connection for me. I'm working on my Spanish, but it takes a long time to to become fluent. And I will say, not that the men aren't wonderful, but these Afghan women are remarkable. They have overcome so much. They are so fiercely committed to women and to education and so many things that I can take for granted. They are just fierce advocates for their daughters and for all women. And so I have had so many sweet conversations with Afghan women about their dreams and their hopes. And it's been really wonderful just to get to know them. I mean, they're just really encouraging people. And even, I mean, we are coming from different faiths, most of us, but they are still people of faith. And I have been surprised at how I can share my faith. Like, we can share our faiths together. I have prayed with our Afghan clients. I've had the opportunity they all want to go and sit in our chapel, like they just want, where do we pray here? Where do you pray in this place? Can we go be there? And that has been really sweet for me too. And as I've prayed with these women, some of them with crazy situations, and seeing God do miracles, like seeing God open doors that we never could have opened ourselves. And so it's been, it's always an adventure. I love, like, we started with mostly Central American clients, and I've grown to just love the culture so much. But it's been sweet to learn about a whole new culture.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, we do operate out of Restoration Anglican Church. So our offices are actually the children's classrooms in the church. Restoration graciously provides a space for free. So the sanctuary is on the second floor. So that's what Michelle's referring to, is that several of our Afghan clients do ask to go up to the sanctuary and sit and pray, which is really lovely, and one of the many reasons we love being housed in the local church and deeply connected to the local church as we do this work. I'll just respond to one question from Mona. Hi, Mona. Mona's asking how many staff we have to handle 900 cases. So I will just provide a little bit of context for that. So we do have over 900 open cases. So what that means is that case is not resolved. And those, like I said before, about half of those are asylum cases. So that means about half of asylum cases that we have not yet been decided. Some of those open cases also are green card applications. So people who are eligible will become eligible for their green card applications that we will help them apply for. Some of those are open SIJS cases as well. But as Julia's mentioned, and as we've alluded to with the asylum cases, these cases take years to process. So there's only a certain number of cases that are truly active at one time. So it does require obviously some case management as to what's going on with each case, but we don't have 900 cases active at one time. There's a small percentage of them that are active and requiring action at a time.
It doesn't feel that small, though. It doesn't feel like that small of a percentage.
Yes, so we do have a staff of 13. But many of us are part-time. So there's some other attorneys in this space that like to call RILA small but mighty, that we are just super efficient. We like to think that we're super efficient with our resources and with the truly amazing and remarkable staff that we have. Okay, we're going to shift gears just a little bit away from the specific work that we do and talk more about RILA's work and its relationship to the work of the church and its relationship to the gospel itself. So this is a question for both Michelle and Julia. Why do you think RILA's work is important to the work of the church?
It's funny. I was just like yesterday I heard, and I've heard this before, but no, I love you. Sorry, my 13-year-old son who ignores boundaries. Get out.
When will you be done?
No, go.
Where's Dad?
I'm like embarrassed. I'm really sorry.
It's
Sorry.
okay, don't be embarrassed. Thanks, Henry.
Mhm. Go find him. I do not know. See, he's not cute and little like yours. He's big and stinky and just boldly interrupting. Anyway, so I just heard this quote from St. Francis of Assisi the other day that I've heard before, but in all circumstances preach the gospel, and when necessary use words, right? So that this just feels like that's what we get to do at Ryla. And it's not just us, it's all of our volunteers. It's, it's all church partners bringing dinner, but I am amazed at how much our clients get it, that we are doing this because we love Jesus, because Jesus loves them. Even without us ever really doing like an altar call or explaining God loves you so much. And that's why we do, like, we're not usually saying that, but they get it. And so getting to be a part of that, like that, I think builds credibility for the local church. Like, how can you share the good news with people if you're not helping them in their circumstances? So I feel like at Ryla, we get to help the church build credibility in these communities. Look, we care about you. We're invested. We care what happens to you. And maybe then we have that space to care for their souls as well. Like if we can meet those immediate needs. So for me, this just feels crucial to the work of the early church was always caring for the community. So it feels like we just get to do that at Ryla.
Have anything to add, Julia?
Just quickly, I think that idea of holistic ministry, right, coming alongside and helping God meet their physical needs through us, right? So I see immigration as again, I already talked about how many doors it opens, but the immigration process can just meet so many physical needs, but that opens the space when you're not figuring out how to feed yourself and your children, then it opens the space to see how God is moving in providing those things. And so talking with clients about the immigration judge we're going to be in front of and how they are reminding me that it's really God who's in control and that God will provide the way forward. It's not us there, right? It's God there with us. When we come together and we serve, the church we are just an extension of the church, right? Meeting these needs. So the clients come to us with so many levels of needs, and God is meeting those needs. Ryla is just one of the tools the church has available to it that God is using. But we're able to also connect people, connect clients to other branches of the church who can meet other needs that we can't handle. We can't do everything, but God has a way within the body of doing everything. But then I just go back to all of the verses in the Bible where God calls us to be aware of the foreigner and the stranger, and provide out of our abundance, provide for them. So that's what I see Ryla as doing, and the church doing through Ryla.
Mm-hmm.
Julia, I'd like to add, how many times have you had clients say, wow, you're an answer to prayer. I've been praying for someone to help me with this. I've been praying that this would happen and you're doing this. And so that also, it feels like, yeah, the Lord is just working things out. And to them, it's not about us to them either. They see this, like most of our clients are people of faith and they are praying for these things and they need the Lord to provide.
Yeah. And I guess I come at it from a slightly different position in that lawyers in general to the immigrant community is taken advantage of by lawyers all the time, right? So if I go to my private practice, right, and talk to those clients, eventually I build a similar rapport with them, right? But they're coming at it, having to pay a lot of money to have somebody to get into all their private details of their life and try to help them figure out a way out. But at Ryla, we're not taking any of their money. And it's the amount of openness that they're ready the open heart, open everything, right? That they are bringing us into their lives and all of the details of all of the trauma that they've been through. And they're ready to share all of that because it's almost like immediate trust, right? Trust building at Ryla doesn't take very long. And I think that's a God thing, right? For all the different reasons. But when church people can come along and be part of that process, it's just beautiful. And we are filled with churches coming alongside of us.
Mhm.
So it's practical application of what we believe.
Yeah. For me, this is it's interesting when like your work gets wrapped up. I mean, I guess that's what vocation is, when your work gets wrapped up in your faith and your calling for the work that you've been given to do on this earth. And I think the kind of work that Ryla does is fundamental to what it means to follow Jesus, and that all churches, not Christians, should be doing something like this. That is an expression of who God is to the people that are on the outside, to the people that often don't have a voice, that are not seen, that are on the margins, that don't have rights, that, through no fault of their own. And like Michelle was saying, like, it could be any one of us. Like, it just has to do with where you're born and the circumstances that you find yourself in. And to be people that see and hear and listen, that is an expression of who God is. That is an expression of who Jesus is. And we think that changes people. We think that it changes our clients and changes us and changes our volunteers that do it with us. And one other side note about volunteers is, at this point, we do have some volunteers that work with us that are not Christians. And I think, like Michelle was saying, giving us credibility as the local church, that there are people that volunteer with us that haven't been in churches in years, and they get to come inside a church and do the work that we're doing and see, no, this is what the gospel is. This is what God is like. So the next question is about you personally. And you've touched on this just a little bit, praying with clients, or I agree, it's very humbling. I've had many clients reassure me, say, no, I know God is with us.
Mhm.
I actually had one client a couple of years ago that she was granted asylum, and after the hearing, she told me that she had a dream the night before from the Lord that
Wow.
she was going to be granted asylum. She did not share that with us beforehand. But she had so much faith, like just so full of faith, and God's love and care for her and speaking to her. So the next question is about you personally and places that you have seen and experienced the presence of God in your work and in your own life, or in your life through this work.
I think the daily, I mean, so the faith of our clients for sure is challenging, encouraging, edifying, all of those things. But second to that, the most common, the most frequent impact for me is that this is too heavy for me to carry, and it drives me to prayer. I cannot meet the needs of my clients, no matter how much I want to, and I want to, right? After you meet these amazing people and you hear what they've been through, you want nothing bad to ever happen to them again. You want to be able to fix all of the problems. But if I stay in that place, I can't keep doing this work. So every day, having to trust the Lord with these people that I care so much about, having to trust the Lord that what I can do is what he's called me to do, and that's enough. And that he is actually more in love with these people and more capable of caring for them. And so one of the biggest impacts of this work regularly is just keeping me connected to the Lord, because I couldn't do it. Like it's hard to look at such injustice and trauma, and I mean, I don't know how people process that without Jesus. So for me, I think staying in this work and for it to be sustainable has just required a lot of like prayer and reliance on the Lord to carry the things that are too heavy and to provide for the needs that I want to meet and cannot. Yeah, I don't know. That's a recurring theme for me. And probably for anyone doing this type of work, it's heavy, but I want to keep doing it. So it drives me back to Jesus. I need you to give me what I need for today so that I can share it and get filled up again tomorrow.
So for me, I think that idea that in our weakness, God is glorified. And in my private practice, I'm a solo attorney. So I am on my own. I have a legal assistant, a virtual assistant. Hold on, let me close the door. It's getting loud here. Ryla has given me a chance. God has given me a chance with Ryla to be part of a team, and to not be alone, and to know that we're part of this organization where my weaknesses are held up. I am held up in my weakness by the team around me, and that God can use me even though I'm broken, just like God is working in the lives of our broken clients and bringing them to what he has for them. And I see that in all of my cases. So that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I love what you both shared. Michelle, whenever you were sharing, it makes me think of the idea of just having a well that never runs dry. And that is, I mean, that I'm very similar in that this kind of work, our daily work drives me to that. Like I will totally run dry if Jesus doesn't fill me up, but it is true that it is infinitely available, that it doesn't have to run dry. So I do love that about this work also, that it does force me in a friendly way, in a nice way, back to Jesus. And then I'll share one story where I really, really felt like the presence of God came through in one particular case. I had one particular case in which it was clear that this little family should be granted asylum. They were from Nicaragua. And I don't know if you know much about Nicaragua, but there's an authoritarian dictator in Nicaragua that him and his wife, who's the vice president, severely persecutes anybody that opposes them in any way. And this young family, 2 sisters, a little 6-year-old girl, and the dad had fled from their government. And so clearly, right, that they should be granted asylum. But there was some serious opposition from the government and just from all kinds of places against this family. And it just felt like it was more than normal. It just felt like more opposition than normal was going on with this case. And so I enlisted some friends to pray for this case for about a month. And on the day of the hearing, the government attorney in the middle of the hearing decided that she would concede asylum, that she was not going to fight us anymore on the case. And I don't really know any other way to explain that. There wasn't something that there isn't sort of a logical explanation as to why that. I mean, I don't know if she got tired or not sure what happened. Just in the middle of the hearing, she was like, Your Honor, we were breaking for lunch. And she was like, Your Honor, actually, we don't need to break for lunch. We defer to the court, which means that we're not opposing asylum anymore for this family. And that, I mean, that has been, I know stories like that are very powerful, typically for the person that experienced them than from you hearing them. But for me, it was just a moment of the presence of God in the courtroom and just God's love for me. Like I just felt like really seen by God myself, and just so encouraged by God's love and care for this family. So anyway, that just happened this spring. Okay, so sort of connected to this, and then we'll get into thoughts about how Christians can practically serve immigrants in our neighborhoods. Do you have anything else to say along these lines about how Ryla has shaped your worldview and faith? So we've talked about how you experience the presence of God, but are there ways that you feel different now as a person after your time working at RILA?
I feel like working at RILA has made me more aware of my privilege. And I know that's like happened to us as a nation along the same time, but I just grew up in the suburbs, like everything was pretty easy. And working with RILA, working with people that feel so like I feel so connected to, I feel so like we are the same, you know, we have the same heart, we have the same hopes, we have the same dreams, and just seeing just the immense difficulties that these folks face just because they're born somewhere else has fundamentally changed me. And I don't, maybe I would have gotten there some other way, but for sure through my like my regular interactions with people that are so different and yet exactly the same as me, and just seeing how much easier I can move through the world, how much like just walking with people through. Remember the first time at the very beginning, our first thing we ever did was I took an Ethiopian man to his ICE check-in, and he went ahead of me and they're yelling at him and they're like being nasty. And I walk in and they're so nice. Like, hello, ma'am, can we help you? And I was like, what the crap? Like, what is happening? He is a human. I am a human. Like, we can all be nice to humans. And that was my first interaction of like, oh, everyone isn't just nice to you when you go places, because as a like young white woman from the suburbs, that was just my life experience. And so walking alongside people and seeing just the drastically different experiences that people are having has, yeah, I think helped me to see, notice where I am having it so much easier, and notice where things are really wrong and unjust, and how can I be a part of elevating voices that need to be elevated, and yeah, just being a part of the solution rather than perpetuating it or just not even seeing it. I feel like I didn't see it the same way before. What are you? You're laughing now.
I disagree. Yeah. Julia, how about you? How have you been changed and shaped by your work at RILA?
So RILA, I don't know how to say this. I've thought about this question for a while, but RILA, this idea of being as part of the team has changed my view, right? That I have an individual relationship with Jesus, and I follow Jesus, but to be surrounded by a body who is also pursuing Jesus in this same endeavor. So I love my church and I love the communal worship experience, but having this mission focus and working together on a regular basis to help specific people with specific needs has been wonderful. And having God be such a part of that, right? So in my private practice, like Michelle said, we take Jesus wherever we go. But to have Jesus be a central focus of a group of people surrounding you is so encouraging of my faith. And to know that even though it's not our strength and not our power, and we can't meet all of these people's needs, right? The amount of people in even just Northern Virginia that need immigration services is out of we can't reach everybody. We can't help everybody who can't afford a lawyer. We can't meet the needs of all of the most vulnerable, but God can use us to help this as a team, help this one person. And that can be enough. We don't have to fix everything. Sorry, that's what my dog thinks about this.
He agrees. Amen. He's just amen.
Amen.
That's right. Okay, so now we're going to move into thoughts about practical ways that churches and Christians can engage and serve and love our immigrant neighbors. Julia, I'll start with you. It's just specific to attorneys. So what are ways that you think Christian attorneys can love and serve their immigrant neighbors, you know, through their normal work that they're doing? and or potentially through volunteer work with RILA or as a GAL, or what are your thoughts about that?
So I specifically think lawyers can find ways to honor immigrants as people, right? So be relational with neighbors. Listen, when they find out you're a lawyer, they're going to want to ask you all these questions. And even if you can't give them legal advice, lawyers are good at listening. We're trained a lot of training and listening. And so even if all we can do is say, I'm not able to help you with that legal issue, but I want to encourage you, or let me make connections, helping people make connections, connecting them to somebody that is in that area that can help them. That's one level, right? Connecting them to services, connecting them to other legal professionals who can help them. But volunteering is a great thing. RILA's always looking for lawyers as volunteers, and I think we're hiring, right? So we're always looking for more attorneys to join the team. And we can give you a little, or we can give you a lot. It can be figured out what would best meet your needs and your gifts. We have lawyers from all different backgrounds. I think we have a lawyer right now who I'm super excited, has never been to court, but he's willing to step in. And we're training him to get him ready for a special immigrant juvenile hearing in the local juvenile court. So God can use us all, even in our weaknesses. And because we have a team and we are really I think you said small but mighty, right? We have people who will come alongside anybody who's willing to get involved, anybody who's willing to volunteer. But if we take that, even outside of RILA, if we take that and see that God wants us to live that way with our immigrant neighbors, to come alongside them, to help them figure out what they need help with, right? Sometimes they don't know what to ask for. Maybe it's just somebody explaining something that they don't understand about our culture or about a holiday that's coming up, but just relationally reaching out and being open to listening, I think are good ways for lawyers and anybody else to get involved.
Mm-hmm. And Michelle, what would you add to that to include some non-attorneys? So both, like, generally speaking, but then if you want to speak a little bit to how people can get, if they're local, can get involved in RILA.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I found at my kids' schools, right? We have lots of immigrant neighbors. So just being present there, I think one of the things I recommend people is, if you have any Spanish, just like greet somebody. They're always having to conform to English and American culture. And so it speaks a lot of love when you just try, even if it's wrong or whatever. I feel like that's the way we can just like validate people that you're okay the way you are. And so I see you. And I can be the one that's, uncomfortable for once. I think, let's see, our family, I'll just give a little plug. Our family has recently started fostering through the unaccompanied refugee minor program. So there is a way, there are all these kids that are here in the US with no family, and they need foster families. And you can be licensed, and it's sort of incredible. There are challenges, but it's also a really beautiful way. They're mostly teenagers. They just need a safe place where someone can help them navigate like the crazy world that we live in. And then at RILA, we have the clinics. It's like core to our being to involve and rely on volunteers, because we want everyone to get to have it's impacted our lives so much to work with our clients, and we want to share that because we think that is really valuable. So we have Mel put in the chat some ways that you can help at the clinic, but I love plugs for the meal. Hospitality is incredibly important in Latino culture and in Afghan culture and most other cultures. It's just really important to people to be hosted, to be welcomed, to be fed. And so it's a really sweet way. We always have a meal together before we have all our meetings at the clinics. And it's sometimes quirky, sometimes funny, but always wonderful. So we love for people to get involved that way. You can bring your family, you can bring your neighbors, your small group. Like, it's a great way to just put yourself in the path of people that are often on the margins. So I would, encourage you. I think, yeah, Mel listed some things. So I'm sure there's a way to reach out to us if you want to get involved with our clinics in the future.
Yeah, that's great. If you want to get involved specifically with RILA, I believe you could just email Mel. Am I right about that, Mel? Yes. And one last thing I'll say about serving our immigrant neighbors. I think it's very powerful to be open to just being interrupted. And so I think about that a lot, especially in our particular context and culture where we can see interruptions as a pretty significant inconvenience. But a lot of the times that I've had a chance to have a conversation or a significant interaction with not just an immigrant neighbor, but really any neighbor, would be when I'm out and available and paying attention. So just being out, paying attention, seeing the people around you, and being willing to be interrupted. Because just like our work at RILA, we all know that God has called us here and God is with us in our work, and the same as when we're just out in our daily lives, that God is with you and God has called you to something really specific for that day. And it might be to be interrupted by a neighbor. It might be to be interrupted by an immigrant neighbor that you can see and love and hear. So